Well, you may be thinking about who you should like, who you should hate, who you should be angry at, who you should be furious at. Don't worry about that. The US government will take care of all of that for you. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here. And I know what you're thinking. Why am I sitting here looking at some flippin' idiot sitting in front of his desk with a black and white outfit on? I don't know the answer to that, but let's go. At any rate, the weaponization of rage is the topic of discussion today. I was having a talk with a brilliant friend of mine, and we were like into all this philosophical stuff, and it just struck me, and I thought I must share this with my friends. So here's my point. I was thinking about this, and it was all right. I've said this in the past. You've listened to some shows, you've probably heard me say this, right? The United States, the US, the neocons, let's just not just say the US because it's the US and the UK, right? The neocons are very skillful at something, right? And I put it like this, but we're going to adjust the way we put it. They go to a particular country, we'll call that country Venezuela, and they find some traitor. They find some traitorous group. They find some backstabbers, right? And they then empower the traitors or backstabbers against this country, right? And we could go time after time. And the more vile, the more vicious, the more brutal that this group is, the better it works, right? And let's go with a couple examples. Let's go with a couple examples. Iran. Look up the MEK. That's called the Mujahideen al-Khalq. Who is it? It's an insane cult. They, during the Gulf War, during the Iran-Iraq War, they fought, the Iranians, they fought on the side of the Iraqis. They just fought against their own country. It's a cult that they believe the leader of their cult is the incarnation of God or something crazy. I mean, just crazy stuff, right? Very violent terrorist group, always ready, put a gun in their hand. They're ready to go blow something up. An angry, violent, vicious, really, really strange cult, right? So the U.S. is supporting the Mujahideen al-Khalq, whatever the hell, MEK. They're supporting them. They've got some base in Armenia that they live in, a compound. Come on, let me start here. If you live in a compound in a group, if you're a part of a group and that group has a compound, yeah, trust me when I tell you this, you're not moving in the right direction, right? So the Mujahideen al-Khalq, they got some friggin' compound in Armenia. Every time you turn around, they're having something somewhere in the West. The U.S., a bunch of Democrats and Republicans are there. They're getting paid. Giuliani has spoke and gotten paid. It's one of the places that the neoliberal class goes to get money. The U.S. government funds them, gives them all of this money, and then they spread it around. They grease palms with it, right? It's that circular thing that I've described, where people think that the U.S. finds these comprador, these people in another country, and gives them the money, and they steal the money. You're halfway there. They find these groups, and the U.S. says, we're going to support this group, and we're going to give them, I'm just going to give a number, $1 billion. That group is allowed to peel, I'm going to throw a number, 50 million off and split that. The other, what is it, 50 million out of $1 billion? The other $950 million gets laundered and circulated back into the hands of the crooked neoliberal establishment. Sorry about here. Of the crooked neoliberal establishment. So what happens? The U.S. gives the MEK X amount of dollars. The MEK then takes that, and all kinds of Democrats and Republicans and Rudy Giuliani's and John Bolton's, all of these people go, they have an event. The MEK has an event somewhere, that's going to mean something. But it gives them an excuse to pay the John Boltons of the world, to pay the whoever, they always say it's bipartisan. Why? Because everybody's trying to eat, man. You're in Congress, everybody's got to eat. You go there, they pay your way there, you stay in a luxury hotel. I remember they had this thing in in France. Paris, I believe it was. And they paid all of these politicians, they paid their way there, and then they gave them a big a lump of cash for talking, right? So that's how one of the things they do with these groups is they launder money through them. They get a little bit, and what is it? What was it? FTX, right? Give money to Ukraine. Ukraine then gives the money to FTX. FTX then filters it back into your stinking, filthy, greedy, criminal, corrupt pockets, right? That's one of the games they play. But for the purpose of this, that's not going to be the focus. It's something they do, but that ain't going to be the focus. The focus is this. The MEK is a vile, angry, and rageful group, right? So what does the US do? Say you're angry, you're rageful, and you hate the Iranian government, don't you? Angry and full of rage. Well, what do you know? At who? At the Iranian government, the very government that we want to take down, not because they have the fourth largest oil and reserves in the world, not because they have gigantic gas fields, some of the biggest gas fields in the world. That has nothing to do with it. We're just here for goodness and stuff like that, and we want to stop dictators and things of that nature. So we are aligned. We want to do good things and overthrow the government of this country that has all of these rich resources that we could make a mint out of, trillions. At the same time, you hate them because you're friggin' flipping bona fide insane and you're a cult. That'll work. So then what does the US do? It then proceeds to go to this fruitcake cult, to its leaders, and convince them that if you do what you already want to do and we finance it, it will benefit you. Now they go convince the MEK that their outcome, the outcome they're looking for, aligns with the outcome that we're looking for, and we're just there. Not that we want to go in there and steal oil and gas, but you guys are doing the right thing. The Iranian government's evil. Their gas and oil is good, but that ain't part of this conversation. And we just, because we like to do the right thing, we're going to finance the MEK. We're going to help you guys overthrow the Iranian government. And then once you get in power, then we'll do as you please with this country. We might have a contract or two related to oil and pipelines and gas and things of that nature. Maybe a couple things we might need you to sign. Nothing to be worried about. In fact, you won't even need to read the paperwork. You just we'll handle all of that. You'll sign that, and you know what? We will develop the gas and oil fields for you. That's because, I mean, if you're going to do the right thing, you got to go all the way. We're a very benevolent country. So there we go. So what have you done? You've taken an angry, rage-filled group. You've now saw this group and said they are angry. That anger and rage they have is a great weapon. How can we use that weapon? How can we access the weapon of their rage? Very simple. You must simply convince them that the outcome they want is the outcome you want. Now, you can either tell them that you're doing it for the good reasons or the bad reasons. You want to help people, it don't matter, because they're angry and rage-filled and probably pretty much nuts. They ain't really going to care. The only thing they're looking at is, wow, we'll get to overthrow the government, and then we'll be in charge of Iran, and we'll have this powerful country behind us. Man, this is the power we always needed. Why we're insane with a Mujahideen al-Khalq. It must have been God. God must have sent the United States. It wasn't God. And they ain't looking out for you in the end. They'll probably just kill you and replace you with somebody else because you're nuts and you'll get in the way. But you're a useful tool now. But the most useful tool they have is your rage. That's why you're not going to ask questions. That's not why you're going to look them in the face and say, are you really doing that to help us? No, because you're full of rage. And they understand that their greatest weapon is your rage. Now let's go to Ukraine. You may ask yourself, why has my country since 1945 been telling me that the worst creatures on earth are Nazis? They're fascists, they're Hitler, they're evil, they're horrible. Whatever you do, don't come around anywhere near Nazis. In fact, Joe Biden said that one of the reasons that he ran, when he saw Charlottesville, when he saw those Nazis, that was casus belli at that point. He saw those Nazis and he's like, I'm going to war. He even said it. I knew that this white supremacy and racism and anti-Semitism of these Nazis, I knew that was not going to stand. So Joe Biden took a moral position. He looked at and he said, look at those guys. They're Nazis. In America, I'm standing up and fight for the Nazis. Well, what a great guy. How valiant is that? This man hates Nazis. But that's changed. Something's changed. Now in Ukraine, you have the worst, most horrific, unthinkable fascists, self-proclaimed Nazis on this planet. Ukraine, look it up yourself, do some research. Ukraine has been considered the center of the world's Nazis. They are the globalization of Nazis. They're the Joe Biden administration of Nazis. They're Nazi globalists. You know, you got some Nazis that are in a particular country and they're like, yes, sirree, I'm a Nazi in country X, and we are the greatest ethnicity in country X, and we're going to rule country X. There you got a nationalist Nazis, not in Ukraine. That's why the globalists like Joe Biden really align very well with the Nazis in Ukraine, because the Nazis in Ukraine are globalists. What do they say? Do they say, we're the Nazis and we want to run Ukraine? No. What they say is, we want to be the leader of the white race worldwide. They are globalized Nazis. You ever thought of that, huh? The Nazi globalization dudes. Well, that's exactly what they are. So the Nazi globalized Nazis are aligned with the globalized ultra liberals, a match made in heaven. Now, how does that work? Because I don't know if you've been paying attention to things. Unless you've been watching the mainstream media, you probably know things ain't working out real well for the Nazis in Ukraine. They're having bad days, artillery-filled bad days. Their future ain't bright. In fact, their present ain't all that great. And to say many of them have a future would be an exaggeration, because a lot of them are done toast. A lot of them have died, and now they're sitting in a rain-soaked, ice covered trench, getting snowed on, waiting for the next freaking artillery round to drop on them and their buddies and send them to the great Valhalla or wherever the hell Nazis think they go, right? But how'd that happen? How did it happen? That Nazi, in fact, the Nazis are probably sitting in a trench looking around saying, how the hell did this happen? One day, John McCain and Lindsey Graham were meeting with us. We had fresh new uniforms. Yeah, we had to cover up our Nazi tattoos just till they left. We had fresh new uniforms. We had new guns. They were giving us the rah-rah march saying, we're going to get those Russians. Yes, sirree. Get those Russians. That's what we're going to do. And we were like, wow, we got the United States behind us, the most powerful country in the world. And they agree with us. They hate the Russians too. And they know we hate the Russians. Oh, we're working together and we're going to get those Russians this time. The Russians are going down. I was sitting in a trench one day saying that. I mean, I was sitting in a dining hall drinking a cold one with a bipartisan group from Congress, and I was saying Sieg Heil and goose stepping around, and these guys came in and they just said, keep up the good work there, Adolf. It was great. I thought it was all going to work out well, and here I sit in a friggin' frozen trench with trench foot, already got shrapnel wounds, watching my buddies around me get vaporized by friggin' artillery rounds, knowing that my day is about to get worse. It ain't going to get better. It's going to get worse. And at some point, 500,000 Russians are going to come from that direction. And when that happens, my tattoo swastika covered ass is grass. That's where those Nazis are sitting. And that's probably what they're thinking to themselves right now. I'm not a Nazi, but I'm just guessing. That's what I'd be thinking if I was a Nazi sitting in a trench. I'd be looking like, man, this ain't going to end well. And it ain't, okay? It's going to end, but not well. Okay, so here's my point. So what happened to old Adolf sitting in the trench? How did he end up with this fate? I'll make it simple. The U.S. looked at him and his brethren, as it were, in Azov, and they said, guys, you guys look angry. You have rage. And they were like, yes, that's what we got. We got rage. We hate those Russians. And at that point, that's when the neocons knew they were going to take this one home. Oh, you really despise the Russians, don't you? And they were like, nobody could hate Russians worse than we do. And the neocons took out a shot, filled the shot glass, clinked it to all of their buddies, and swigged it down because they knew at that point they had everything they needed from these ignorant bastards. They had rage. And once they got rage, they're going to cash in. So what did they do? All right, guys, if you hate Russians, here's the plan. Whenever the neocons give you a plan, it ain't going to work out best for you. Here's the plan. We'll overthrow the government. 2014, they overthrew the government. Anybody doesn't believe that, research it. It ain't hard to find. Then they said, here's what we're going to do. Let's start digging trenches and training you and getting ready for war. Because in 2014, when the U.S. overthrew the government, at that point, they started getting ready for war with Russia because they knew they had the suckers that they needed. We're going to dig trenches. Why, the Russians will never be able to get through these trenches. And all the Nazis were like, yeah, the Russians will never get through these trenches. Why, they're stupid old Russians. They'll never figure that out. We'll mow them down like cordwood. Yeah, so they got these poor knuckle dragging apes to dig trenches, to get trained. They were living high on the hog. Yeah, I've watched videos where they went into like the Azov literally had like nice new big business buildings. Azov Nazis had their own business buildings. And like people were walking through, there was like people had swastikas and Mein Kampf and stuff all over the place. So the U.S. literally builds these people brand new buildings. You know, they thought they had it made. And it was all to fuel their rage. Here, put up all the swastikas you want there, Adolf. Hey, free swastika tattoos for everyone. Paid them. They had a salary. They incorporated them into the Ukrainian military. I hope they gave them good insurance and death benefits because they'll need them, the ones that are still around. So at this point, here's what they knew. We have suckers. They are full of rage. Now, all we have to do is, and the rage is already directed where we want it, to the Russians. So all we have to do is empower them to fight the Russians. We'll train them. They'll be happy to get trained. We'll arm them. They'll be happy to get armed because these dumb jackasses, when we put a machine gun in their hand, they'll think to themselves, wow, I got a machine gun. I can use this to fight the Russians. I'm going to mow them down. Look how strong I am. I got a brand new outfit. I got all kind of German iconography, skull and bone, crossbones, and all kinds of things all over, icons from the Waffen, Hoffen, Pfaffen, all that, you name it. They got a third Reich iconography from head to flipping toe, right? The U.S. is paying for all that stuff. That would be us. And they're feeling empowered. And the U.S. is feeling like perfect. And the U.S. is like this. Look, we will sick these bastards on Russia. And if by some miracle they defeat Russia or they give Russia a hard time or they drag this thing out for a long time, wonderful. If they all get mowed down and torn to shreds, who gives a rat's ass? They were just suckers anyway. Whatever. Let's give it a shot. So they arm these guys. They dig trenches and stuff like this for 8 years. They give them all this military. And then what do? They say they take their rage, they aim it in Russia. They arm their rage with weapons and training and all this stuff. And then they go over to the bear and they poke the bear. Hey, bear, poke, 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 till the bear swipes. And then they got their war. Right now, they got something even better. They got the Europeans. These poor dumb bastards, just as much suckers, and they got rage too. And they don't like Russia either. I've seen videos from Germany where you've probably seen it. There's this lady on TV, German TV, and she's saying, the Russians, they're not Europeans. They may look like Europeans. They may even smell like Europeans. But those slimy bastards ain't European. Now, of course, I'm exaggerating, but you get the picture. She might as well said that. Those Ubermenschen, they're lower than us. They don't deserve to be in our presence, right? So you're listening to this shit from like Germany, thinking to yourself, that would have went over well in 1933, right? So you're listening to these germs and you realize that there's an underlying anti-Slav kind of racism, and it ain't all that underlying, permeating throughout Europe. And Americans realize that too. And they say, well, it may not be quite to the level of rage, but it's close as we can get, we'll take it. So then they get everything going, and then they say to the suckers in Europe, you guys really hate Putin. Did we tell you he's the most evil person in the world? You should really hate Putin. He's not just a Russian, he's worse. And so now they've sharpened that rage up like a razor towards Vladimir Putin. Why? Because they're going to need it. Because they're going to screw over the Europeans and destroy their lives. But it can only work if they can take their anger and rage and focus it somewhere so they won't look in the mirror and they won't realize that they're shivering and they're hungry and their lives are going to hell, and the United States is behind it. So the US takes that underlying anger and hate and, dare I say, racism towards the Russians and the Slavs, and they're like, look, and because it's to the Slavs, the poor dumbass Ukrainians, little do they realize they're Slavs. And so they're getting wiped out by the hundreds of thousands. Europeans ain't really crazy about Slavs. So they're like, hey, Russians dying, Ukrainians dying. We're killing two birds with one stone. Not a bad idea. So you got a lot of Europeans have a level. Let's be honest here. We're amongst friends. We can say things that you're not supposed to say in public. A lot of Europeans have a racism towards the Russians and the Slavs. And a lot of Europeans ain't going to lose a lot of sleep if Slavs are wiping each other out on the battlefield. In fact, they'll probably sleep a little better. The only problem is the US empire sees that as an opportunity. So it takes that rage towards the Russian, it sharpens it up. Why does it need the rage for the Europeans? Because they're going to screw them to the wall. So then what do? They cut off their gas. They cut off their energy from Russia. And the Europeans are like, hey, it's getting kind of cold in here. I don't like this. And they're like, Putin, do you hate Putin? Oh, I forgot. I'm enraged against Putin. There you go. So shut up and shiver. Okay, don't forget. If you're not willing to freeze to death, if you're not willing to lose a minimum of 4 digits off of either fingers or toes, I don't care, hands or, but you got a frostbite, you got to be willing to lose a minimum of 4 digits before we'll accept that your rage and hate towards the Russians and Putin is acceptable. So all the Europeans are like, okay, 4 digits. So we still have 6 left. Okay, whatever the hell, right? We'll go with that. So they bite the hook. So now the Americans then say, oh yeah, we left something out. We're taking your industry, all of it. And the Europeans are like, hey, we won't have any jobs. Then they're like, boy, you really hate Putin, don't you? He's a son of a bitch. And then, of course, then what do? They've weaponized this rage and anger. And the Europeans are like, oh, I forgot. Yeah, Putin is over there. He is a son of a bitch. Okay, take our jobs. You already got 4 fingers, but those got frozen and cut off in frostbite. What the hell? It's not like I'm going to be a piano player or something now. I'm done. So go ahead and take my job. And that's where the Europeans are. They've weaponized the anger and the rage of the Europeans against the Russians. So they're using that against those poor saps, and they're picking their feathers like a freaking chicken. And the Europeans are angry and rageful at the wrong people, and they're being taken for a ride. And as a man who practiced Zen, I would say, if you get in a car and you say, take me for a ride, you're going to get taken for a ride. Hey, where are you going? I don't care. Let's just go for a ride. So the neocons are like, yeah, let's go. And the Europeans are like, yeah, can I have a blue and yellow flag? Sure, you poor freaking yeah, right here. Okay. And that's what they get. Their jobs, out of here. Heat, none for you. Food, minimum, you're going to get some crackers or something. You're going to be hungry. You ain't going to be able to afford a damn thing. Pubs, fun, forget recreation. Yeah, within a year, that's all gone. You ain't paying for none of that in Europe. But you will still have your anger and hatred for Russians, and the neocons will use that to beat the living shit out of you. and you'll be happy to get it. When you're that's the thing about a person who's enraged. Somebody can use the hell out of them and they'll thank them for doing it. Great job there, Joe Biden. Way to get those Russians. Somebody, is the window open? No, we just don't have any heat. Okay. Yeah, we're showing Putin. And then every time they complain, right? Every time they're like, hey, I don't have any food and I'm cold. And their leaders are like, yeah, but think about Putin. Oh, yeah, that's right. And if you're not willing to give everything up, if you're not willing to give up your industry, give up your jobs, give up your food, give up your children's future, live in abject poverty, if you're not willing to do that, then you don't have enough hatred and rage towards Putin. And then the Europeans are like, all right, just give me another blue and yellow flag to wave. Maybe if I move my hands around enough, it'll keep me warm. Well, it ain't going to keep you warm. And you've lost some fingers, so you got to decide which hand you're going to, be waving the flag with. You poor sons of bitches. Anyway, sorry about that. That leaked out. That leaked out. Forgive me. At any rate, so let's continue. So what we're looking at is this: the U.S. in Europe, they're using the rage of the Ukrainians, and if you think about it, Europeans, let's be honest. You could be the Ukrainians. I mean, they're using, your rage against you. A lot of you are going to freeze to death. Fair enough. And, as far as your future and the type of lifestyle that you're accustomed to having, that's shot to hell. Those days are gone. Think of the poorest country you can ever imagine. I tell you what you want to do. Look at some pictures of Haiti. That's going to be France, Berlin, London. That's what's coming. You don't believe me? You think I'm wrong? I tell you what you do. You go online and you search homeless camps in Los Angeles, homeless camps in Portland, Oregon, homeless camps in Seattle. Search them. If you think that ain't what's coming, let's do that together. Maybe our European brethren need to have a look at what the weaponization of their rage is going to bring them home. This camp, Portland. That's a nice place. They got a lot of homeless people there. And let's see what the weaponization of rage brings. All right, dear Europeans. There we go. There's a nice little thing to look at. There you go. Maybe you need to see it a little bit bigger. There you go. That's it. But that's one of the nicer, cleaner ones if you really want the truth. That's like a nice one. Why don't we look at, I don't know. And now your family, here we go. Look at that. There you go. Yeah, homeless family. I don't know what that poor bastard's swinging on. He's got a bottle of water. One guy's chewing on something. Poor little kid there. Horrifying, isn't it? It's horrifying. They got diversity. Look, you got a blonde-haired kid. The neoliberals will love that. You got a homeless kid. Looks like he's maybe mixed race. This poor son of a bitch. He's done. He's a white guy. All of them, they're screwed. Every last one of them are screwed, right? But if you hate Putin enough, you're willing to take that because you're so angry. You can't, think about this. You can't let Putin win, can you? No. So take your family. You're going to get moved out of your house eventually because you got no job. You're not going to be able to pay. There'll be shanty towns. You ever see like Lagos, Nigeria, where they show those shanty towns? Here in Europe, shanty towns is your future. But within the context of those shanty towns, I will guarantee you this. A couple of years from now, you go to Paris. And on the outskirts of Paris will be pretty much like the outskirts of Lagos, Nigeria, or some of these other places where there's a lot of poverty, right? Shanty towns everywhere. But I'm going to tell you right now, within those shanty towns, you'll find some blue and yellow flags. You'll find like pictures of, what's his name? I call him the Mandarin from Iron Man 3 of what's his name? Zelensky, whatever the hell, right? You'll find pictures of him. You'll find people whose rage has been weaponized against them to hate Russia so bad that they lost everything. But they still love Zelensky, and they got a picture of him. They used to have a picture of Jesus hanging up there. That no more. That picture of Jesus is gone. They burned it. They're angry at God. How could God do this to me? I used to have a life and now. So they hate God. They're mad at him. They have turned on God because their lives are a living hell. But they haven't turned on Zelensky because he's Time Magazine's Man of the Year. How can you turn on the Man of the Year? For God's sake, you can't turn on Zelensky, who by that time will be living in his villa just south of Miami in a gated community. But your sorry ass is going to be living in a shanty town in the outskirts of Paris. Why? Because that's what weaponized rage brings you. Now, at least you're going to be better off. Maybe one could look at it this way, in an existential way. At least you're going to be better off than the Ukrainians. Why that is that? Because the Ukrainian Nazis, their rage was used to put their asses out in front of artillery barrages. So the ones that survive, they'll have their feet will be blown off, there'll be half their face hanging off, blind, deaf, dumb, tongue, teeth smashed out from a friggin' artillery. Sexual organs mutilated by hot metal flying. I mean, those sons of bitches. You want to talk about people who are really screwed. The few Ukrainians that are left will be a physical mess. Why is that? Because the United States came to them and said, do you hate the Russians? And they said yes. And that sealed their doom. You see, when the neocons come to you and say, do you hate the fill in the blank? Slam the door in their faces. Don't tell them you hate anybody. They're not. What do you think? The neocons, Victoria Nuland, these people, do you think they're coming? Do you think Victoria Nuland, she came, look at this. During the Maidan coup, when they overthrew the government of Ukraine in 2014, Victoria Nuland, one of the undersecretary of states, was in Kiev in Maidan Square handing out cookies. She ain't in Maidan Square handing out cookies now. You know why? Because they don't have electricity in Maidan Square. They don't have water, which means their toilets don't flush, which means they're going to be looking at third world diseases from the medieval times, like cholera and stuff like that floating around, coming from feces running into whatever water you can get. That's what they're going to be looking at. Victoria Nuland ain't coming back there. She ain't handing out cookies. She ain't handing out bottles of water. She ain't coming back. She got what she needed. She got a bunch of rage-filled Nazis. She then weaponized their rage. She pointed that rage at her target, not theirs. She convinced them that their rage was her rage. She convinced them that the people that they were enraged at were the people that she was enraged at. And she convinced them that she was going to help them to execute their anger and to vanquish their enemy. And every bit of it was a damn lie. And now she's throwing their asses to the artillery and they're done. And she did the same damn thing. Well, Biden and his crew did the same damn thing to the Europeans. Convinced them that your anger towards the Slavs and the Russians was Biden's anger towards the Slavs and the Russians, and that he was going to help you, and that Putin is so evil that they've got to help you stop Putin. Do whatever you can, and you are going to be screwed in Europe, down to the last man and woman. And you know what? You don't even have any leaders that are going to do anything for you. You know why? Because they're part of the game. They're complicit. Look at you. What happens when Germans start marching and they're like, hey, we want food and warmth and things that human beings get in a civilized industrial society, which those things don't have to be together. You seem to have quite an industrial society, whether or not, but I'm in an industrial society. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the US. I don't know how civilized it is, but there are expectations in an industrial society. You had in Europe those expectations, and now that the neocons have taken your anger, directed it towards whoever, and now they have their vassals. Now they have their comprador class, the complicit people. Now when you say, I am in Germany, Dusseldorf. I don't know where the hell Dusseldorf is, but it sounds like a funny name. You know, words kind of like ointment. Ointment's always funny, right? Dusseldorf. Yeah, where are you going? Dusseldorf. I don't know where it is, but it sounds like a funny place. Like they just, you go to Dusseldorf, there's like clowns hopping around the street or something. Hey, funny clowns there. Take the kids to Dusseldorf. I want to see the Dusseldorf clowns, Daddy. All right, we're going to see the Dusseldorf clowns. Place like Dusseldorf, you really probably got to have clowns, but maybe now, maybe not so much because it's too damn cold. But at any rate, so my point is, you go there, and I shouldn't have talked about the clowns. I got ADD, and as soon as I get off track, I forget what the hell I'm talking about. But luckily, if you watch my videos, you know it comes back to me within a minute or so. So you know, you understand the ride you're on when you're talking to Garland Nixon. But at any rate, so you're in you go to Germany, and you decide. Oh, excuse me, now I know where I am. So the Germans just in Dusseldorf decide we're going to stand up and we're going to say we've decided we want food and water and shelter and heat and the things that human beings kind of need to survive. And you stand up to your government and you say, we're protesting. Your government is part of the plot. And they call Biden. Hey, Biden, these poor sons of bitches really got it bad. I don't know how much I can hold out. What do you want me to tell them? And Biden says, tell them what you always been telling them. Tell them something about Putin. I don't care. A noun, a verb, and a Putin. That's what the sentence has to say. Okay. So now they go with their marching orders. Their marching orders, people of Dusseldorf, is not to act in your best behalf. It is to help to focus your rage. The problem you've got is your rage is unfocused. And your rage is drifting away from where they intended to be, which is Putin and the Russians. And now it's coming back and it's starting to point to the people that are bending you over, screwing you. Well, we won't go there. They're screwing you bad. And they've lost control of your rage. So now your leaders, Annalena Baerbock and the rest of these schmucks. So now what do? They know their job. They go back to you and they say, people of Germany. And you're like, we're hungry. They're like, yeah, that ain't important now. If you really hate Putin, then you'll go the hell home and continue to freeze. Come on. What, you don't want to stand up to Putin? He's an evil bastard. He's the worst human being on earth. The Russians are terrible. They're just a bunch of the foul, evil beasts. And Putin's the leader of the foul, evil beasts. And don't you hate foul, evil beasts? Yes, we do. Then shut the hell up and go home. And the Germans go, yeah, I guess we hate the Russians. Our rage is once again directed where the people in charge and the neocons want it. We're going to shut up and go home. But we don't have to go home because it's not like when we go inside, we'll be warmer than we are outside. And it's not like we'll get our bellies full because we can't afford food anymore. So that's where you are. Every now and then, the people of Europe forget what the hell they're supposed to be angry at, and their anger drifts away from the Russians and comes back to their politicians, and their politicians, knowing the complicit class that they are, they don't have to call Biden. I just threw that in there. They already know what their job, to herd the friggin' sheep. The sheep are heading towards the woods. Don't let the sheep get away. They're going to run off in the woods. Hey, sheep, yeah, let me stand in front of you and say, there's a wolf in the woods. What's the wolf's name? Vladimir Putin. Oh, my God. And he's evil. You better hate him. You know, he ate all of your buddies. Oh, my God, he did. Well, I hate him. Good. Stand right there in the middle of the, of the pasture. And the sheep are like, thanks for protecting the shepherd. But what does the shepherd do? Why is he protecting those sheep? Does the shepherd protect the sheep because no, he's going to shear the sheep. He's going to cut their wool off, and then he's going to friggin' slaughter and eat them himself. He's only saving you, he's not saving you from the wolves. He's saving you because he's going to eat you during the first, hey, what's happening? Hey, my daughter's getting married. I need a sheep. Grab the stupid one up front. Yeah, will do anything you tell him to do. Yeah, the one right there just looking at us with a smile on his face. Yeah, he hates Putin the most. You take him over, you cut his friggin' throat and cook him. That's what you are. You're the sheep up front, and they're going to cut your throat and cook you. And you kind of need to be cooked. If you're stupid enough, they'll allow your rage to be focused so bad, so much so, that you are willing to give up your lifestyle, everything you've had for centuries, everything you and your people and everybody who looks and thinks like you have had for centuries. You're going to give it up in like a 12-month period because these people were able to convince you to hate somebody. It's a very Zen kind of thing. Then you really ought to give it up and face the consequences. Now, let me add this. Why did I put Elon Musk in there, right? Why did I put Elon Musk in there? So Elon Musk, we're told, is a wonderful guy. Oh, he's the most wonderful man. He's got electric cars. The whole world's have electric cars. So he was the guy that you were told to like. Your rage was focused away from Elon Musk. Hey, he's providing Starlink for the Nazis in Ukraine. Yay! Starlink for the Nazis. Woo! High five. We like him. And electric cars. Did I mention electric cars? Hey, how about solar power? That's our man, Elon. So you're told to love Elon Musk. Elon Musk then buys Twitter, and the machine's like, ooh, wait, whoo, time out. We use Twitter. The FBI meets with the Twitter people every day and tells them to throw off anybody who would screw up our attempt to control your anger and rage and tell you who you should be raged at. As long as you're tweeting, telling people who to hate, and it's the proper people that the neocons and the government and the intelligent national security state wants, that's fine. But the national security state has to meet with Twitter on a weekly basis to ensure that they control the rage. It's weaponized. It's got to be pointed at the right people, and that ain't them. Along comes Elon Musk. Their guy, they love him. He's got solar equipment and electric cars, man. Who wouldn't like that? You know, remember that old song, we're gonna walk down to Electric Avenue and we can take it higher, right? There you go. Electric cars, electric avenue, electric everything. Love Elon Musk. Elon buys Twitter. Whoa. Time out. National security state. Then what happens? You can see the turn. You turn on TV and you're like, yes, I know they love Elon Musk. And they're like, Elon Musk. God, what a low life. You know, we're not telling you who to hate. Actually, we are. We're not telling you who to hate, but we, the people that you respect, that you think know everything, yeah, we really hate Elon Musk. Well, what's Elon Musk doing? Yeah, he's letting the cat out of the bag a little bit on Twitter. He's still part of the ruling elite class. Don't get me wrong. He is still part of the ruling elite class. But he's given up the ghost on a few of these things. You're not supposed to tell people that the national security state is meeting with social media every week, telling them what the hell to censor. If people know that, they'll realize that that is an end around the Constitution, that it is illegal, that it's a violation of the Constitution, and they can start filing lawsuits and filing interrogatories and asking for all kinds of data. And they can start doing things like asking us questions that we have to answer. We'll have to be deposed. Holy shit, he's a problem. Time to weaponize the rage against Elon Musk, our solar panel building electric car guy. Time to stop him. Now he's like, yay, there's some bullshit going on with COVID, and I'm gonna drop a dime on COVID. Now he's a white supremacist, I guess. Let's face it. Now, as soon as he Twitter files 5 or 6, whatever the hell drops out, and it's something about COVID, I'm going to guarantee you this. He's going to be a white supremacist, a racist, homophobe, transphobe. I mean, they got, and don't get mad at him for that. Don't get mad at him. You already know it's coming. That's the hand they play. Look, the people who spent every other week on Epstein Island, who like their names are all over Ghislaine Maxwell's book, which we'll never see. They like put out a picture. Here's a picture with Elon Musk and standing next to Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell, whoever the hell, right? And I'm like, well, she was at every party where the rich person people were. They were at every single event. I'm sure you can find any rich person who ever went to a party. I'm going to guarantee you can find a picture of them standing next to Maxwell and Epstein, because they were at every party for the rich. And you're kind of admitting by showing a picture there that they were apart, by showing here's a picture of Elon Musk. What you're really saying is they were in those circles. Maxwell and Epstein were in those circles. But isn't it interesting? The same people who said to us, there's no issue with Alan Dershowitz and Bill Clinton and some of these other people, Bill Gates, Bill who the hell ever, being on Epstein's Island. Every time you turn around, pictures of Clinton with some little comely young girl with her hands on his back just to squeezing away. Nah, nothing. Dershowitz, people, I'm not going to name any names, allegedly getting a massage in their underwear from an underage girl. Nothing to see here. But we got a picture of Elon Musk. There we go. And he's standing next to Epstein or Maxwell or whoever. The people who hung out on the island put that out. Why? Because they're desperate. They had to do anything. They now have to weaponize anger and rage against Elon Musk in the same way that it's if there's a country they don't like, Venezuela. Boy, that Maduro's an evil guy, ain't he? Oh my God, he's the evilest. We must have rage against him. Syria. Oh, that Assad. See, they can't just name a country in general. They've got to weaponize rage against something, and it's got to be something concrete. It's got to be something that they can point to. That's why they got to name the leader. Assad. Okay, what about him? He is evil. God knows that man is evil, and you should hate him. They're weaponizing your rage. Well, why should I hate him? Well, because we're going to attack the country and steal all their oil. And the only way we can do that is if we convince you to hate him. And once you hate him, then you won't realize that we're spending up all your resources, that we're laundering money through these countries, that we're doing every god darn thing on earth evil. And we're keeping all the money and you're getting screwed. Your electricity doesn't work. Your bridges are falling apart. You don't have water in some of the cities. The ones you do got lead pipes. Things ain't so good for you. But we got to get you hate Assad, hate China's Communist Party, hate Maduro, hate Cuba, hate whoever the hell. So we'll be scared to death of North Korea, a country literally the size of Pennsylvania with like a population of like California. That you got to be scared to death of them, because if you're not angry and hateful of those people and enraged at those people, then how are we going to justify all the money we're spending to menace them, to surround them with bases and threaten them and try to steal their shit? So that is the weaponization of rage. You're told who to hate. 1 week, Elon Musk is the green savior. He's got Teslas, and every latte drinking liberal is driving a stinking Tesla, and they're mad at you because you're not. In fact, remember this? Hey, man, gas is $5 a gallon. Go out and buy yourself a Tesla for $50,000 to save gas. You won't have to spend any gas at all, but you do have to have $50,000. Yeah, right? So that's 1 week. Hey, solar panel for everybody. We're going to give you a tax break if you get solar panels. Elon Musk is paying solar panel. He's our green god, the god of green. Elon Musk. He buys Twitter. He lets out the cat out of the bag of 3 or 4 things. And now, oh my God, he's Epstein's whatever, a gay lover or something. If you listen to these people, he's the same person he was. Here's what I think about Elon Musk. Here's what I think about whoever they tell me to hate next. Maduro, whoever. I don't know these people. I will never meet them. They could be very nice people. They could be horrible people. I was at Fox News. I was around all the people that I'm a lefty. I was around all the people that I was told to hate. I was around, you name it, right? And a lot of them I was very good friends with. I was at Tucker Carlson. I was told to hate Tucker Carlson. I used to go on his show. He was one of the nicest people you ever met. I may disagree with him on a lot of policies, but he was very nice to me. The kind of guy you could sit and have a beer and laugh, and always had a smile on his face. I like Tucker Carlson. I can disagree with him on things, right? Laura, what's her name? I used to go on her show. I'd come and she always had a smile. Hey, Garland, how you doing? Always had a compliment. Oh, you look nice today, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what she's like, Laura Ingraham, but she was very nice to me. I'm told I'm supposed to hate her. Why, my God, she's a far right winger. I can disagree with her politically, but she really treated me nice. I liked her, still do. So my point is, people that you're told to hate, if you actually knew him in person, Donald Trump, you're told to hate him. If you knew Donald Trump in person, you might hate him. You might like him. You might say, this guy's a lot of fun. I don't know. You know what? I always thought George Bush is the kind of guy, George W. Bush. God, I disagree with that man politically. I disagree with Trump politically. But Bush seemed like the kind of guy you could have a beer with and have a joke. Trump seems like the kind of guy you could have a beer with and have a joke. I don't have to hate him, disagree with him. But what we were told is to hate Trump, to despise Trump. Why? Why? Really? Why? In my opinion, it was part of the whole psyop. It was part of this. Trump came in and he said, look, NATO's kind of bullshit. What do we still need that for? And Russia, they're telling us they're evil. Russia, he wasn't part of the psyop. He says, Putin seems all right to me. I don't know. He's just another guy. Putin does terrible things. And Trump basically said, the leader of every country, we rub people out. We overthrow governments. We ain't angels, pal. So how are you going to look at the leader of any country and say he's an angel or he's not an angel with our record. That was honest. You know what? I got to say something about that. That's what I do. That's something that I really believe in. When people say that guy's a jerk, I say, look, who amongst us is let the one amongst us without with that who has no sin throw the first stone, right? I say to myself, and you know, everybody right now that's watching this knows if anybody was to able to go into your brain and go all the way through your life, they would find things that you have done in your life that you wish you hadn't done, that in hindsight you're embarrassed about. I'm glad nobody knows I did that. And we're all human beings. That's what human beings do. So don't be so quick to judge others. When you accept that you as a human being are imperfect, and say that's okay, I'm a human being, it makes it okay to accept that other people are imperfect. And then you don't get full of rage and anger and hate towards people. And then people like CIA psyop schmucks don't come in and turn your rage and anger and hate against you. That's your weakness. Your weakness is that rage and anger, and the neocons know it. And when they can get you to hate whoever, then they're going to use it against you. Now, let me say this too. Again, whether it's Laura Ingraham, whether it's Rachel Maddow, somebody I strongly disagree with. She pissed me off with the whole Russiagate stuff. All of these people that I see on TV, and I'm like, I may hate what they're doing or saying on TV. For all I know, if I met Rachel Maddow and sat down and watched the game with her, she may be charming or fun. You know, let me tell you a story real quick. Back when I was on a TV show on Fox Business called Follow the Money with my buddy, what's his name? I can't think of it. Before he had the show was called Money Rocks first, and they changed it to Follow the Money. I can see his, and we were on the 5. He was on the 5. I used to go on the show on the 5. Then he went to Blaze. I used to go on the show on the Blaze. Good guy. I liked him. Disagree with him politically, like all hell, but I liked him. But at any rate, so I was on one day, and they do different blocks, right? So this block, they're like, okay, we're doing the next block, you're not in this one, so you sit on the side. So I'm sitting on the side in the studio, and they bring on this guy. What's the guy's name? He was a friend of Obama. He lived in Obama's neighborhood. Bill something. He was in the Weather Underground. Bill Myers, I don't know. Somebody will remember this was, but the conservatives hate him, right? He was in the Weather Underground, right? The conservatives hate his guts. So at any rate, my guy, who's, I don't remember anybody's name anymore. God, my brain's getting fried. But the bottom line is, the host of the show, the Andrew Breitbart, and this guy, Bill, whatever the hell his name was, not Myers, Bill Ayers, were on. So I'm sitting on the side, I'm just out of camera range. And so Andrew Breitbart's on, and the guy that does the show is talking, the host of the show is talking to Breitbart. Breitbart's like, yeah, Ayers wasn't on. That's right. What happened was Andrew Breitbart and somebody else, somebody wrote Bill Withers. It's a lovely day. Somebody wrote, somehow, I think it was a dinner, if I'm not mistaken, there was like a silent auction, and there was a dinner with this guy, right? And Andrew Breitbart, might have been Tucker Carlson, and somebody else bought that so they could have dinner with it. And he was like the evil former underground weatherman guy, Obama's friend. They had to hate him, right? This was like 2010. Well, I'm in New York at the studio, and I'm watching this. I'll never forget this. So they say to Andrew Breitbart, and he's like, yes, you had dinner with Bill Ayers. And Breitbart's like, yeah, I did. He's like, how was it? God, I mean, I'm exaggerating for dramatic effect, but you get the picture of what it would be like on Fox, particularly Fox Business News. It's like, oh my God, no. The horror, the humanity. Tell me what it was like. They were expecting him to say, well, he first cooked some children and ate them before, then he tortured some small animals. And Andrew Breitbart was like, well, he was a gracious host, cooked a great meal. We had a fantastic wine, had a good philosophical discussion, blah, blah, blah. And the Fox host is like, what? But I mean, you were with Bill Ayers, Mr. Evil. He was horrible, right? And Breitbart's like, nah, it's like we had a good time. He was a very gracious host. I met his wife, whatever his wife's name was, and she was nice. And they introduced us in. They have a quaint place in a nice Hyde Park, whatever the hell, in Chicago. And the home was nice, and the food was nice, and we had dinner, and it was just a joy, right? And the guy from Fox was just like stunned. He didn't know what to make of it. Why? Because they've been taught to hate Bill Ayers. And he just knew, based on everything that he'd been told, that Ayers was in his house eating children and doing terrible things. Why? Because he was evil. Because his rage, his anger had been not just, he probably didn't know who Bill Ayers was. And then Bill Ayers was introduced to him as an evil figure. And then that rage and anger was cultivated. So it was like, here's Bill Ayers. Okay, who's that? Evil, terrible, lefty, violent, horrible, evil man. And they cultivated that anger and that hate and that rage for Bill Ayers, so much so that his expectations were that Andrew Breitbart was going to tell him how bad Bill Ayers was. And he was visibly shaken when Breitbart basically said, I went to dinner with this guy, and he was nice, and his wife was nice, and we had a nice dinner and a fine bottle of wine, and it was a great evening. He couldn't imagine that. It's what I've experienced. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, when I first came to Fox, that's what I thought about you. I thought you were some horrible, evil jerk. I thought you were a moron. I thought you were the worst human being in the world. And then we sat down there, we smiled, and I came here every week, and we got along. And you said, hey, Garland, I'd like you to be on my show every week. I'd like you to come to New York every week. I want you to be on my show. And I'm like, hey, thanks. That's great. And then boom. And Fox looked out for me, and we became friends. And wherever I was, and I got like calls, I had all kinds of opportunities. The people there from Fox went to other networks, and hey, Garland, how'd you like to come over to this network? We got some things going on. I had great opportunities as a result of that. I ended up on a TV show in New York City and Philly and Jersey and all that as a result of my friends at Fox that I didn't get along with. Why? Because I didn't allow someone else to cultivate my hate, to point it to someone, and to control me with my hate and convince me that their hate was my hate. You're better off without hate. Maybe that's what I'm saying. You're better off without hate. And that's the long and short of it. I guess that's what I'm saying. That's the whole thing. You don't hate the Russians, don't hate the Syrians, don't hate the Venezuelans, don't hate the Iranis, don't hate the Iranian government, don't hate the Iranian people, don't hate the Iranian military, don't hate the Icelandic people, none of them. No, if somebody tells you or try to cultivate your anger and hate for another group, reject it, because they're going to use that for their own purposes. They're going to weaponize it, and eventually they're going to tell you that they're using that hate, that their ends are your ends. They're using your hate. They're joining you with your hate so you can go out and get your revenge on whoever you're both you and them hate, and in the end, it's going to cost you dearly. That's what the Ukrainians are finding out. That's what the poor damn Europeans are finding out. That's what they're all finding out. The Europeans are cultivating their hate, and we're in for the same fate if we don't wake up. So that's it. A couple of things. Let me look. We got some super chats, and I will answer the super chats. Let's start here. Basil says, the last people you want in charge are those who can't apologize or admit they made a mistake. Very brilliant. Philosophically wise, my friend. Yeah, because you got to be able to admit you're human. You got to be able to admit you're imperfect. John McCarthy, the whole manipulating rage trick is also how they take down anti-imperialist organizations from when. You best believe it. You best believe it. They go into an organization and they convince somebody, well, the leader of this organization is evil. You should hate him. Next, Rochelle. Thank you, Rochelle, for that super sticker. I appreciate it. I'm looking over a four-leaf clover that I've never seen. Okay, hold on. I'll get a little carried away. All right, let me look on Rockfin. On Rockfin, we got somebody. Okay, JVB says, Garland, you sound great with JD's music playing softly in the background. Don't worry, I won't cut it out. Somebody's music is playing in the background. Oh, okay. Oh, Jimmy Dore. That's right. One of my favorite. Jimmy Dore's funny because he's an angry man. Jimmy's funny because he's an angry man. But let me tell you one thing about Jimmy. And that's why I say being angry sometimes is not the worst thing in the world. If it's you're angry, anger can be healthy. Right? If I look at what the U.S. empire is doing and I say, well, they're starving poor people in Venezuela. I know I've been there. I've been to countries. You go to a country and you say, my country is sanctioning these people. It's good to be angry. Why? I've chosen who I'm angry with. I'm angry at my government for doing this in my name. I didn't have somebody else come to me and say, hey, Garland, you should be angry at this person. Let's be angry at this person together. No, I've chosen who I'm angry with. Anger in and of itself is not unhealthy. It is, if it consumes you, if somebody else controls and manipulates your anger, certainly. Yeah, if you know me, I'm not a very emotional person. Probably don't experience and or express my emotions as well as I'm kind of, if you know me, if you watch my, if I enjoy myself, I have fun, but I can be kind of robotic when it comes to emotions. My daughter once said to me, it's funny, but she was saying to me, and this is hilarious. And my son-in-law, I love the ground he walks on. He's a great guy. And she says, yeah, my husband sometimes can be a little bit, robotic, a little bit of kind of an, a little bit of an automaton. She loves him. I love him very much. He's a great guy. She says, but he can be a little robotic and not real emotional. And she goes, hey, wait a minute. He's just like you. And then she says, I think little girls do grow up to marry guys that are like their daddy. And I'm like, yeah, I guess But so I'm not. I can be very. I can be. I'll put it to you like this: over rationalize everything. So rather than feel the emotions, I like think it through rationally. Well, sure, I should be angry, but I would only be angry for this reason, and that's not rational and that's not logical. But I really should be, and I'll sit there and just reason out the emotions, and I don't experience them. So that ain't healthy either. But at least I don't have some neocon bastard that's got me outside freezing to freaking death, paying $9,000 a pound for a steak in Dusseldorf because I let them weaponize my emotions. How about that? Let's look one more time. Anybody else? Any more? I think that's it. All right, I'm out of here. And here's what I'll say to my dear and fluffy friends in everywhere. Number one, if you're watching me on Twitter, God knows Twitch, I'm on Twitch, but I don't think there's anybody watching me there. But if you are, please go to my YouTube channel and make sure you click there. Everybody click the like. I'm seeing 437 people. There should be 437 likes. Everybody click a like. Make sure you like that. And make sure you click the little bell. You be subscribed, click the little bell so that you'll get notifications. Now, as you know, sometimes they kind of kick me off of social media. They weaponize their anger against me. So please, they could kick me off YouTube at any time. Go to rockfin.com, ROKFIN.com/Garland Nixon. Make sure you become, it's perfectly free, absolutely free. You do not have to pay anything. Go to rockfin.com and become a member. If you want to be a subscriber, I think it's somewhere between, I don't know, it changed. It's somewhere between $9 and $14.99 a month. I'm not sure, but Rockfin is a free speech platform. They don't have any advertisements, so subscribers is what keeps them alive and allows them to go. You can join for free, but you can be a subscriber, and if you join for a year, you get 2 months free. So please subscribe if you can afford it. If you can't, just become a member. The only difference between a subscriber and a member is all Rockfin creators we agree to do one premium show per week. That premium show is for our subscribers can see that. And mine is with Scott Ritter every Wednesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Other than that, that's the one premium show with my agreement that I do. And to be a subscriber, get you to see that. But it also helps keep the platform going because they don't have any advertisements or anything like that. And they got to have something. Certainly, you see everything going by. PayPal, buymeacoffee.com/Garland N with an H, Cash App, any number of ways if you want to, if you can afford it, to help contribute to the channel. Patreon, if you can do $1, $5, $100 a month, whatever you can afford a month on Patreon is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Don't forget, go to rockfin.com/Garland Nixon and become a free member. If you can afford to, you can become a subscriber. And I've got a Substack too. It's called Political Superfood, believe it or not. I think I'm going to start writing more. I wrote an article last week. I think I'm going to start writing more on the old political superfood. It's kind of like the kale of Substacks, huh? Peace. I'm out.